I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. It's Friday, and Friday it's the Healing Circle. The Healing Circle is a project created by and with me by Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya. She's the principal at Brakens Consulting and Psychological Services. She's also the CEO leader at African American Child Wellness Institute. And since the pandemic, we've been holding regular weekly meetings talking about all things health in general, all things mental health in particular, trying to demystify, to destigmatize our ability to look at ourselves, look at society, look at the internal and the external, look broadly at existence as it seems to us in a way that enables us to navigate healthy lives, the premises that we deserve to be healthy. And here she is, Dr. B. Good to see you, as always. Here today, Dr. Bravada Garrett Akatsana, Dr. Oliver Williams, a sage, a doer and a leader, an elder in our community, and a pioneer in the field of domestic abuse. Also, my colleague and friend, Brenda Lyle Gray, who assists me every day, 5 days a week, in the undertaking of Conversations with Al McFarlane. And Dr. B, I want to really go to you first because I keep thinking about how wonderful it is that you start our meetings a certain way, describing the vantage point and the process that reflects that vantage point, who we are in relation to our ancestors, in relation to the people whose land we're on right now, and in relation to our obligation to those that are yet unborn. So with that, Dr. B, I'm going to pass the talking stick to you. I'm particularly interested in you sharing this with our national audience, people that are connecting through the National Newspaper Publishers Association and at Black Press USA. So, Dr. B, I'm passing the talking stick to you. You can explain that too, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, my brother Al. And it's wonderful to be here with my beautiful sister Brenda, and of course, my extremely eloquent brother, Dr. Oliver Williams. And so as we begin to look at this weekend, thinking about Easter and Passover and Ramadan and all of the spiritual practices that connect us all to God, it reminds me of why we do this work, just as you said, because we do it in circle. And although we're in distance, we imagine that we're in a circle. And the African tradition of doing circle process is that everyone in the circle has voice. Everyone in the circle has equal access to the center, which is the place of power. So we form our discussions in that orderly process of circle, and we pass the talking stick so that the full attention of everyone present is drawn to the person who is empowered by holding the stick, because the stick symbolizes that the community trust to give you voice while others listen. That's the sacred nature of the talking stick. Then we also worship and praise our Creator in multiple ways. We honor those who are on the way to the Creator. We honor our ancestors because they're closest to God. We honor our elders because they're closest to the ancestors. And we honor each other because we are more spirit than we are containers. We're all spirit, and we just come in different containers, like water. And one of the things that we do in this space that I'd like to do today that we haven't done in a while is, because of the sacred nature of this weekend, I would like to invite the audience, those who hear and those who are here later and who hear us now, to engage in the most sacred of the rituals. and the sacred nature of the ritual of the libations that are poured, and the water that symbolizes that we're all connected and our bodies are more water than anything. That's why we're together. We pour that water to symbolize that connection. And today I will pour the water to symbolize our connection. And after I pour the water, the proper phrase to say is ashe, which means thank you. So we say ashe. So I'll pour the water. Let's see if I can get this. And I asked us together to say ashe. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Now, the Yoruba believe that the most sacred is the calling of names. And the reason the calling of names is so sacred is because nobody got here on our own. Somebody worked our way, prayed our way, dreamed our way into existence. And we stand here, the embodiment of centuries of hopes and dreams. The embodiment. Just think about that. When people couldn't breathe, when they couldn't breathe free air, and we have among us in this circle thought leaders, teachers, healers, speaking our truth. That's the power of being here in this moment. So they believe that, the Yoruba believe that when you call out the names of people who poured spirit and libation into you, that every hope and dream, all the good stuff they gave you immediately comes to fill your spirit. And that's why when we hear a name called in this next part of the ritual, we say ashe. And the reason we're saying thank you to whoever that was who got you here. We're saying thank you and welcome to whoever that was who got you here. So that's the power of the libation. So we will call names on this show for just a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And we will honor each other by saying libation, by saying ashe. And so I'll start with, you don't even have to say who it is, but I'm just going to say, I'm going to start with my parents and people I love. And they don't have to be dead. They can be your children. Anybody who makes you recognize that life is important and that you're fulfilling your divine creation destiny. If they make you a better person, we say their names. So I say the name Austin Garrett, and I ask you to say ashe.
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 I say Laveda Garrett, ashe.
Ashe.
And if you don't say ashe, just for the audience, that's considered very rude, because that means you're not so happy that person is around. You're not so happy the person is around. So you don't want to be caught not saying ashe. So I'm going to say a couple more. Ayo Akansanya.
Ashe.
Ebidayo Akansanya.
Ashe.
Now, the floor is open. Anybody can say, and we will say ashe with you.
Oliver Frederick Williams.
Ashe.
Bueller Williams.
Ashe.
Sonia Davila Williams.
Ashe.
Sam Williams.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Paul Rosenblatt.
Ashe.
Jerry Beaker.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Brenda.
Winifred Lyle.
Ashe.
Eugene Lyle Jr.
Ashe.
Eugene Lau Sr.,
Ashe.
Ashe.
Milana Gray,
Ashe.
Ashe. Gianni North,
Ashe.
and Biko.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you. I'll go with Crusoe. His birth name was Alvin Alonzo Riley McFarlane Sr.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Moss Roland. His name was Roland McFarlane.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Daisy Ann McFarlane.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Martha Harrison Null.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Bernard Powell.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Teola Powell.
Ashe.
Lorenzo Powell.
Ashe.
Queen Mother Maxine McFarlane.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Bobby Patricia Ford.
Ashe.
Finally, Batala McFarlane, Batala McFarlane, Celine McFarlane.
Ashe. Ashe.
Okay.
Yeli Akinsanya. Ashe.
Ashe.
Debo Akinsanya.
Ashe.
Courtney Washington.
Ashe.
Thank you. And together we say, Ashe.
Ashe.
So some of the names were spoken out loud, some of them only in our hearts. But we know who we are and how we got here. And we are grateful. Ashe. So be it. You have the talking stick back, Chief.
All right. Thank you, Dr. B. So, yesterday I had the great fortune of interviewing, was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember now. It might have been Wednesday. Imam Makram El Amin. He is the Imam at Masjid and Nur, the mosque here around the corner from the inside office. It's located at 1729 Lindell Avenue. It's an institution. In fact, I know the building from when it was built, and it started off actually as another Black-owned business, Skip's Barbecue. And if you've been here a long time, you will know and recognize that Skip himself was an institution, a business owner that was on Plymouth Avenue that moved to a new location after the riots on Plymouth Avenue in the late 60s. Imam Makram leads a congregation and spent time with me Wednesday talking about the history, the experience of growing up Muslim. He's a young elder, a young man. His mother and father converted to Islam when he was maybe less than 10, maybe in his primary age years. He said he remembered going to City Hall where they applied for and went through the process of choosing new Islamic names. And so it was great to interview him about the work that mosque does and what Islam means to Black people in America. Because I think we sometimes are very confused and are fearful of the notion of Islam and Black people. We feel either frightened because part of our relationship with Christianity is a relationship based on fear and based on sometimes a mysticism, whereas more appropriate would be to learn that all the beauty taught and the power revealed in that tradition is a question of study, a question of learning, and a question of doing, rather than a question of mysteriousness. It suggests that our capabilities reflect that we know things can be things are complicated. And if they are complicated, however, they can be understood. They just are complicated. So he talked about that, and he he left me with the phrase that growing up, and it's also mom and dad brought to him and his siblings their entire life, explaining to them that the meaning, the purpose of Islam was the pursuit of freedom, of justice, and equality. And you step back and you have to believe and know that that is universal. It's a concept, a construct that every human being ought to feel she or he can own and does own and walks with and walks toward every breathing moment of their life. Freedom, justice, and equality. So I think that we are getting to where we can look at each other and see the light in each other, see the power and the presence of the Spirit in each other, and understand the nature and the working of Spirit without it being spooktified, but scientific, intellectual, personal, real, authentic, and imbued with and imbuing in us, creating in us power to be our true, authentic selves. That's my thought. I'm going to pass the talking stick to Dr. Oliver Williams.
Thank you, Al. As I think about faith, I keep thinking about different experiences within the United States, but also I think about South Africa and I think about Kenya. And the thing about South Africa, I got a chance to travel from Cape Town to Johannesburg to Durban and interact with different faiths in each one of those cities and to see the work that they were doing. And I keep talking about my friend, Dr. Elizabeth Horn, and she works with, 9 different faiths. And we got a chance to spend time with the different faith leaders in each of those cities, but also across the country. She was good friends with Bishop Tutu. And the thing that was fascinating to me was her connections with the Anglican Church, but also 2 different sects of Islam and Hindu and traditional African spirituality and Christianity, and having conversations with people who were from the different communities. I had to give a lecture with the consulate in Cape Town and in Durban, and different people who were faith leaders came to the presentation. And it was interesting to talk to them about their philosophies associated with their faith and how in some ways it was very similar. And she even worked with the Jewish faith that was there. That was also interesting. And but to see the similarities among faiths and people's commitment to faith, but also the work that they did to try to improve the outcomes for the communities. And it was interesting that in some locations, it was the faith leaders that were collaborating with domestic violence programs. And if there was child abuse and neglect, it was the faith leaders that did the yeoman's share of the work to try to disrupt the issues of violence and child abuse and neglect. And to see their commitment to doing it and, to work with one another associated with those things too. And those things were things that sort of moved me. But listening to faith leaders, like I was talking about Reverend Dr. Bishop Roderick Mitchell, who is a bishop in Mississippi, and to see the work that he does to try to address the issue, where you find LaDonna and Bishop Ellis, that's in Detroit, and a number of other people that I can mention that do the work to try to improve the lives of people who are their constituents. And not only do they pray for them, but they have a ministry that addresses issues like domestic violence. And in Detroit, at Bishop Ellis's church, the one that LaDonna is prominent in and does the work around the issues, and develops a ministry within Sunday schools, but also outside of Sunday schools, and works with and prays with, and also knows how to listen to the challenges that the people are going through. So it's not something on Sunday only. It's something that happens throughout the week, where people can go and share their challenges and burdens with faith leaders that are in the churches, and that people respond to it. And that's something that I think is real important, is that you find somebody that can reach out and know how to listen and not disregard, and also comes through it from a faith tradition, where they know what to say and they know how to respond and they know where to direct them. And so when I see that, that sort of fills my heart, to see people are directed towards their issues and challenges of people in the community. And there's a bishop, not a bishop, but a minister that's in Johannesburg, named Reverend Hammond, who, to look at him, you think he was South Asian, but he's black. And I guess that's the thing in South Africa. You look at a lot of people who have a diversity of look. And to get the sense from them and with them, about how they get directed to do their work. And the thing about Minister Hammond is the fact that when he was a child and a young man, he was involved in the gang life. And so he transformed his life, got 3 beautiful children and a wonderful and beautiful wife, and how they are all sort of coalescing to try to respond to using faith as a tool to be able to engage people and engage community to address different challenges that they experience. And the thing that I think about diversity in the United States and the challenges that we have, but I think about diversity in South Africa, and we went to one community where there were 5 different groups. They were all Black people, but they were from different communities, different tribe histories, and they were all working together, and you had to have translators to work with each of them to know how everybody was going to understand and speak about different issues and challenges. But faith was something that helped to direct them, but also finding a way to work together to try to uplift the community. And their definition of community was pretty broad. But when I see people making the efforts to do things like that, it fills my heart. And it also is when we had a panel of people at University of the Western Cape, among the places. The thing that was fascinating to me was how people were talking about different issues and responding to it, and how their faith meant something to them, but also people from their community, how faith meant something to them and directed them to be involved in doing great things. And that also takes me back when we were talking about elders. Like my mother was a faith leader, and how she was involved in doing the work in the city of Detroit. And so I think about that. I think about how faith has an impact in people's lives. I pass the talking stick to you, Brenda.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. When you mention all of the languages, I remember one of my students said, they took everything away from us, but they didn't take languages, but nobody in the village understands each other. So they might as well have, which was the point. Um, I think I have a declaration and an admission. Um, my faith has kept me alive, bottom line. I have gone through a great deal and struggling now because an only child, no siblings, no extended family, because I had lost all of the people that were close to me in their 50s. So I was telling Al, a mutual friend of ours, who is my best friend for 70 years, Brenda, we were talking yesterday and we were talking about Easter and how big it was for us. I mean, we were tough all the way through high school, and we had our outfits designed, um, and then it seems like something happened. God didn't happen. He's still there. He's still telling me certain things. Brenda, it's not your business. So don't put your energy there. So I'm really good there. But the problem I had was after January 6th. I went to Santa Fe is what, maybe 3,000 blacks if they're between Santa Fe and Albuquerque. So I was at an all white church. There were about 10 blacks there. And I knew they were Trump people. I knew they got all of their, because it's very wealthy here. I knew they got their money from Texas oil. But I got to the point where God and I had to have a one-on-one because I didn't know who to trust but him. And I didn't know how sincere they were. So I'm struggling with the hypocrisy, I think. I see a Ted Cruz who attacks Justice Brown Jackson, but he'll be in church on Sunday. And that reminded me of the slave owner who raped his mistress, black slave mistress, but was in church on Sunday. And I keep hearing God saying, Brenda, it's none of your business. Take your days and make the best. And all I ask is trust and obedience. So right now, that's where I am. I'm going through pictures and welcoming the girls in all of their flurry dresses. And I used to pay on their dresses after Christmas, because I wanted my children to have white dresses. But anyway, I told Al right before the show, I saw the title and I said, boy, that Dr. B can come up with some themes. And this is exactly what I was struggling with when it came to Easter, because I miss that. But I can't go and feel like I'm paranoid and I don't know what this person's thinking or, judging me or whatever. And at 75, I just want my days of peace and contentment and continue to be successful in my writing. I've dreamed of that for decades. So we have to hold on to our faith. And Katanji showed that so magnificently they tried so much to break her, and she just showed that faith. So thank you. It's all I can say. Just to have this platform to say that we've got to make a declaration that every day that we have, we're not standing in line in the Ukraine as Black people not being able to get on a train. We're sitting here talking to friends. And we have to count our blessings and our gifts every day. And passing the talking stick back to Al.
Thank you. I'm going to share the screen. I talked about the interview I did with Brother Imam Makram El Amin, and I just want to show you the image because it's a beautiful image. I love powerful. It. And hold on, I've just got to make it the right size here, and share my screen. And then I want to inside it though. Before I do that, in presenting the interview with him in the paper, this is the paper that's coming out Monday. I'm looking at the electronic edition online here. I included a story I came across by a Mr. Victor Ghalib Beg. It was in a publication called TC Palm. I saw it at tcpalm.com, written on April 12th. And it kind of puts into context the conversation. Victor Beg wrote, Lent, Passover, and Ramadan converge in April. It's a time for prayers and family gatherings for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. In their own ways, the three Abrahamic faiths seek to remind us of our responsibility to each other, for each other, and for the world. What brought these religious observances together, and what is the significance of it? The answer to the first question is in the lunar cycle that plays an important role in aligning calendars. The dates change due to the monthly phases of the moon. Therefore, the convergence of these holidays around the same time doesn't happen every year. Ramadan is in the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, which is roughly 11 days shorter than the solar year. The first of the month of Ramadan was April 2nd. It lines up this close to the Jewish and Christian holidays every 30 decades, every 30 years. At the time of Jesus and the biblical prophets, people followed a lunar calendar, not a solar calendar. Lent for the Christians marks the 40 days leading up to Easter. Easter usually occurs on the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. It's called the Paschal full moon. Passover is always on the 15th of the Jewish month of Nisan, which is also a full moon in the spring. These holidays often end up close in or on the calendar. The answer to the second question is the answer to this why is the answer to why this unusually holy month is significant would be to recognize that there's more in common between the religious practices that we know than we know. We live in religiously diverse communities, but that is another sign of an inclusive America. So that's excerpts, but I love being able to talk about how the practical observation of these holidays occurred based on lunar and solar calendars and how they line up on an occasional basis. And I wanted to share with you just this powerful and beautiful image. I'm going to do a screen share here because I think you'll like it. I love it. Let me do my share screen. And share screen, screen one. And let me bring it down here. Okay, here we go. Share. You see it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a photographer that I sent around to get a picture of Imam Makram El Amin at the Masjid and Noor Mosque. Wonderful that they took this building that was a restaurant, turned it into a place of worship, a sanctuary, a mosque, a masjid, and they went another step, which I think is powerful in terms of identity. They put a golden dome on the roof of the building. So when you drive through it, you very seldom see domed, Islamic-looking buildings, and that's what you see in our neighborhood in North Minneapolis. I talked to the imam Wednesday as well. The city of Minneapolis recently passed an ordinance that will allow a mosque to broadcast the calls to prayer several times a day from outside of their buildings. And so when I heard that, I said, awesome. I love to hear the call to prayer. I remember riding, and also I remember riding in cabs, say in New York, and sometimes the drivers would be Muslim guys, and they'd have prayers on their tapes. And the prayer, though I don't understand Arabic or the language, but the melodic, healing, soothing nature of the intent, the purpose of the call to prayer was always wonderful. So I'm imagining that this will be a wonderful healing expression flowing from this building and other mosques in a matter of days as the ordinance comes into play. And I thought about it too, saying, well, are some people going to be upset? Well, some people feel their audio space is being invaded. I took a second and I said, well, I kind of enjoy it when I hear the church bells that ring at noon every day and at 6 p.m. and sometimes in the morning and on Sundays at various times. So I think we're used to hearing the church tower of bells that come out of primarily the Catholic churches. And if we have acclimated ourselves to that, because that also is a reminder of something stable, and it's not an annoyance. It's something that you're used to, and I think you grow to appreciate it. The sonority of the sound. I think we'll do the same thing in hearing the Islamic call to prayer as well. My thoughts for the moment, and I hope people will look for and get a copy of Inside News and keep this. I think it's a beautiful image of the Imam, and I'm glad we were able to present that along with the interview that I did with him in the newspaper. I'm going to pass the talking stick back to Dr. B.
Thank you so much. I was really enjoying the discussion, and actually it took me to recollect how I experienced not just the Easter holiday, but all the holidays. What it symbolized for me. And it symbolizes now that I look back at it, a sense of community. And when you have community, you don't have to celebrate or suffer alone. Just think of that. Community means you never have to celebrate or suffer alone. And to me, that spiritual connection that's institutionalized through religion, but it's also shown through mentorship. It's shown through just plain loving and random acts of kindness that, as we think about this season, I hope that it helps us to turn the volume on the good part of our spirits, the one that my grandma Alice used to call a connecting spirit. She would say people had healing hands and connecting spirits. And when I was little, I didn't quite understand what she meant by it. But as I got older, I realized some people greet you with love. Whether they know you or not, they greet you with love. And so this whole talk today about religion and how it strengthens us and how it can be a component of our resilience is super. And this has happened. Now let me step back. I got to bring up something. But now, get ready for it. So now, as we look at the politics around us, now we have states like Texas, trying to control women's bodies, giving people money, and all saying it is in the name of the Lord. We have people who are men, just who was it? Georgia, was it Georgia or Mississippi? Mississippi just shut down. No, Kentucky just shut down people's abilities to get medical help, even if they were raped or even if they were victims of incest. They just think, you know, we own you, and you better do what we say. So that goes back to Sister Brenda's statement. Where is all this insanity? And I speak clinically when I say this. Where is all, because racism is some form of insanity, and so is sexism. So where's all of this insanity where people believe they have the right to still own other people's bodies? And they hang it on the altar of religion. I'm throwing that out there because you know I'm going to bring something up to shake it up a little bit.
And you know, Dr. B, that's where a lot of the millenniums, including my two daughters, are struggling. And it bothers me because we had that foundation. And when we got to this age, we were able to hold on to that. You know, we had enough conviction where we said certain things are not our business. And there is no explanation or discernment for it. So you just have to bury it in prayer and take your days as a gift. That's hard to do. And these young people are seeing so many conflicts of reasoning, and they can't register it. So, you know, I keep calling for a quiet revolution, but on the back end of it, a prayer tree. Everybody needs to be up there, no matter who your divine spirit is.
That's right.
So
That's right.
anyway, my
That's
comment,
right.
I'm sorry.
And but it's leading to such angst and anxiety and terror and hurt and guilt among people who among people who are giving their power to these legislators who are making these laws, and it's hurtful to many. And those of us who are Christians, or even if you're Jewish or even Muslim, everybody has a perspective of what they think God wants them to do. But last I looked, none of those perspectives erase the fact that people have free will.
Choices.
I haven't seen it yet. And the thing that you said something in your
That's
book.
Powerful.
Come on, let me get you stick. I got you excited now. Tell me what's in the book.
Well, here's what I'm reading. Let me turn this around. I looked for this. The book is entitled "What in Shemsh," and the author, I've been reading him prolifically, is Akwe Arma. I have to line up. Akwe Arma. And what in Shemsh means the way of companions. And so I'll throw this out just to wind this up a little bit, to a little controversy in the conversation. He says there's a fundamental, I'll read it this way so you can see the artwork. There's a fundamental difference between knowledge-based worldviews and faith-based worldviews. Knowledge-based worldviews are open to change, since the basic elements of such worldviews, human knowledge and intelligence, are by definition changing constantly. A knowledge-based worldview does not simply recognize change as part of reality, it welcomes change. I'll read one more paragraph. Those who accept a knowledge-based worldview are free to shift their purpose in life from arresting change to finding out what changes are most reasonable and desirable and how to best achieve them. Adherents are free to admit previous error when the new facts invalidate old perceptions. They are encouraged to make changes in the worldview when new information becomes available. It is the way travelers on the ancient pre-dynastic African path of knowledge, the way of Ma'at, adaptable, open to change, reliant on experimentation and testing, committed only to accuracy, balance, and justice were supposed to proceed. I'll read one more paragraph and then I'll stop. So it says, by distinction, or faith-based worldviews are generally uncomfortable with change. Monotheism in particular is in some fundamental respects bluntly hostile to change. This is a practically unavoidable stance, since at the origin of monotheistic belief resides a perfect being that is held to be eternal, unchanging, with no beginning and no possible end either. Monotheism sets no value on accurate perception and reasoned conception, seeing both as fallible and therefore ultimately unworthy of trust. Monotheism sees the universe fundamentally not as an ongoing process, but as the result of a design belonging to a perfect being, God. That's a lot. What you think?
Woo! I don't know. I'm going to pass
I
that
can't
stick
go
to
there.
him.
That's a little bit. That's deep.
I was going to say I pass it to Brother Oliver because I quite don't know what to say about that. But
I'm
I guess
silent too, Dr. B.
Well, so before you pass it to Dr. Oliver, so what I'm feeling and hearing is the need and the excitement for us to be on a path of rediscovery, that there is history that emanated from us, from which we spring, but from which we have been disconnected, and not by accident, but by intent. That there has been a systemic and centuries long, millennia long process that shifted the world that we created in Kemet in Africa at the beginning of civilization, the beginning of writing, the beginning of speech, and the beginning of organizing. There was a world that recognized the value and the power of relationships expressed as family, and the capability of families replicating through values, through understanding, and through teaching best practices that could be from family to family and in expanding concentric circles, therefore neighborhoods, communities, and what emerged as, large societies or cultures or communities. That at some point in time, that process was beset by energetic people who were not interested in the long, slow evolutionary process that was reflected by the idea that everybody deserves to be here, that everybody is important, and that there is no hierarchical arrangement in our existence. There's a relationship arrangement that values each and every one of us, and that our mission is to ensure that each and every one of us understands the nature, the power, the purpose, and the beauty of connectivity. There was a word that I read that I think Jonathan used yesterday, or someone used it yesterday. I can't think of the word right now, but it means, I read it in this book, but it means you look at a leaf and you see the patterns in a leaf, right? But those patterns in geometry, well, it's like the pattern on the floor of the mosque we looked at. It just goes on and on and on ad infinitum. So there's a pattern system that replicates itself in everything, everywhere. And so that is how we can engage. But it's a long process. It's a slow process, but it's democratic. It really is. And it's a process that ensures this notion, as the Imam was saying, that we remain committed to the idea of freedom, justice, equality. The competing idea, the succeeding idea that we live in now is reflected in the emergence of hierarchy, and hierarchy bound to patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And the patriarchy suggests that men have a certain role of power and have an obligation, a duty to deprive women of that power.
That's right.
So let me stop there, because I think the solution is, how do we get to where we recognize, the balance that there must be in all of us, and that power can be and should be distributed and employed based on combination of knowledge that comes out of training and experience and teaching that ensures that everybody is able to fully develop herself, himself. And anyway, so that's what I'm reading. And I want to get your thoughts.
I'm gonna have to get that book, because that is good. Because what it really is describing the principle of consubstantiation. Mm-hmm. And that principle means all living things are connected. Mm-hmm. So are you gonna hate your finger, or are you gonna love it and appreciate its presence? It has a right to be there. And what you just said is really, I think, the deepest, most honoring space that spirituality sits. And I see we're almost out of time. So, Brother Oliver, did you have one word or two you wanted to put in? We're going to do the stick one quick round and wrap it up.
Well, the one thing I was thinking about as you all were speaking was that ideologies are things that direct people into certain actions. And so when we think about the separating women from men, to dominate, to control what we see in the Republican Party these days, goes back to an ideology of manifest destiny, and white people have the responsibility to dominate everyone. But then you got to change it. Change that, because the one thing I think about as Black people, how we relied on faith and religion to be able to endure, and to be able to look for a better time, and to have faith in God that He's gonna that God will take it to a different space, and we'll be okay. So,
and I'm gonna end that by saying, won't He do it?
That's right.
Have the courage to know the difference.
That's right. Won't He do it? Okay.
Well, let me close by sharing some more things I'm reading. This is a book called Barracude. It's the newest piece on the work of, it's a presentation of work that Zora Neale Hurston did years ago, but now it's published. Check it out. Also, tomorrow, our friend, Brother Resma Menachem, is having a book signing for the release of his new book. The book is called The Quaking of America. Resma and I were on earlier this week. Great interview, great story. And then the last two pieces I want to share, this piece called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Linda Brent is the author.
Really
it's a
good.
Powerful read. It's strong, and it makes you think, Dr. B, about the challenges that our people have gone through. And I'm reading that with one more piece. Well, I think that goes hand in hand with Barracude, because the story Barracude is Zora Neale Hurston's interview of one of the survivors of the in the place called Little Africa, I think, in near Mobile, Alabama. The ship was the Clotilda. Clotilda was the last slave ship that came into this country. And even though slavery and the selling of slaves was illegal, a white businessman bet that he could do it. And so on a bet, he went and bought, and came back and sold Africans just because he could. What does that say? With that, I want to say this has been a great, great show, a great conversation. And thank you all. Thank you, Dr. B. Thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Brenda Lyle Gray.
Have a good holiday.
Thank you.
See you
Have
next
a
time.
great weekend. Happy Easter.
All right. Take care.
And thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.